Welcome to the Mystery Train Studios. This is Along for the Ride, where one lifelong Elvis fan
and his curious bride
share the music, the movies, and the stories behind them. Today, we're looking at a Little Golden Book, a biography of course, Elvis Presley.
I have always been a fan of Little Golden Books ever since I was a young girl, and I didn't realize that Little Golden Book actually had an Elvis Presley biography. I have not read it, so I gave it to you for a gift, so we're going to actually read it together and see what happens.
Exactly, and we will have, I'm sure, questions, knowing you, and other comments. I'm also a fan of Little Golden Books. I remember back in the early 1980s, McDonald's released some through like Happy Meals, and one of my favorites was The Monster at the End of This Book, starring lovable furry old Grover.
Yes. I also just wanted to note that they have quite a variety of biographies, to include Dolly Parton, the Beatles, Elton John, Willie Nelson, Taylor Swift, Harry Styles. So if you have a favorite, or you're trying to introduce someone to someone that you're a fan of, but maybe they're not, I would definitely check out Little Golden Book and see if they have a biography. My thought with the Little Golden Book is if someone is an Elvis fan and they want to introduce someone, probably a Little Golden Book biography is the most easy, basic way to introduce someone.
So this is Elvis Presley, a Little Golden Book biography, and it's written by Lisa Rogers and illustrated by Luke Flowers, and the copyright is 2024, so this came out a couple years back. And if I'm reading this right, this is the 6th printing, which is pretty good.
Oh, okay.
If I'm reading it right.
I'm not really sure what that means. Elvis and his mama spoke in their own special language.
What that is referring to is kind of baby talk with each other, even as Elvis got older. And he would do it back to her. They would just talk baby talk to each other.
Oh, okay.
I really like the illustration. Like they're very colorful illustrations. I just really like the illustrations.
Now, this is something we had talked about before, where his gift was always there. So his gift, of music, or his passion for music and his gift of singing was always there, despite what I think a teacher maybe had flunked him for music. So this is neat to see as a toddler that even then his gift was showing up and he was being drawn to his passion. So it always continues back to, don't ever let anybody try to keep you from your passion and your gift, because that's not their business. God gave it to you for a reason.
That's right. Looking at the illustration, this would have been the late 1930s of Elvis in church. The illustration is very culturally diverse, which unfortunately, from my understanding, is actually not how it would have been back then. However, what they might be trying to represent is that Elvis did interact with particularly African Americans while he was growing up, not necessarily at the First Assembly of God Church, though. Though he loved music, Elvis was shy and didn't sing much outside of church, which does match up with what we heard in Epic. He talked about how he didn't sing much outside of church. Elvis sang a song about a boy and his dog. He came in 5th place.
So I have a question about that. Whatever song he sang, did he ever record it, like as the star Elvis Presley?
He most certainly did.
Oh,
it's a song called Old Shep.
Oh.
It's kind of similar in nature to Old Yeller. It shows up on his first album, Elvis Presley. And Old Yeller is a movie. Do you know that movie?
I'm familiar, but I don't think I like that movie because the dog dies.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
So when I say it's similar to Old Yeller, it's a similar ending. So it's not a song I play a lot.
I wonder why he chose that song. Did he ever talk about why at that age he would choose such a song?
That is a good question. I don't know that I've ever heard that. Which isn't to say that it's not out there, but I don't recall ever hearing it.
And furthermore,
we'll see. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And there's a fun picture here of a young Elvis playing his guitar with 2 dogs listening along.
Now, Did he have glasses?
Yes, he wore glasses specifically I know he wore them at the fair, and he even mentions that again in Epic. He mentions how he wore glasses. I don't really know the story behind the glasses because there's only like that one little time period where you see the young Elvis wearing glasses. And I do know in his 30s he actually had glaucoma, and so sometimes when you see him wearing his famous sunglasses, they're actually prescription.
And I did not know that he wore glasses as a 10-year-old, because you don't really see or hear about that very much.
Yeah, and the illustration here is based on a photo that I've seen. And the same thing here, they're showing him playing his first guitar. And this is based on a photo of what is purported to be his first guitar that has gone around. However, another YouTube channel called Atomic Wax did an incredible video which pretty much, from my perspective, debunks that particular guitar was his first guitar. They're trying to be true in these illustrations to what was known at that time.
Now, in the original photo, were there dogs? Was he playing to an audience of dogs in the original photo, or they just took creative liberty?
The one that looks like the photo is the fair side, on this side. And then this one here of him practicing, I don't know of the photo that I've seen is of the guitar as it stands today, and it's got like the same little, almost like masking tape or something on it holding it together, which is, I'm thinking they used that as a reference for this photo. All right, so moving on. So we're pretty far in this book, and he's still in childhood, and I guess that's because it's a Little Golden Book, so they're focusing on his childhood. Which actually reminds me of another book that I was recently reading, How Lincoln Learned to Read by Daniel Wolfe, and there was a chapter in there about Elvis's youth and growing up in Tupelo and Memphis. It pretty much got him all the way up to the point that he started recording and then stopped.
Didn't you also, I recall on the Mystery Train, there was a post recently about that book?
Yes, I did recently post about that book. So this kind of unintentionally goes well with that. And there's a neat little kind of Easter egg right here next to the turntable that they've got. They have two records down here. They have one by the Ink Spots called That's When Your Heartaches Began. They have one by the Marlin Sisters called My Happiness. I will come back to that. The summer after he graduated high school, Elvis sang 2 songs at a recording studio. Those were the 2 songs. So there are, and we can hear them. He did them as amateur, like demo type recordings. I've got them. I can play them for you so you can hear like the very first recording of Elvis.
Why did they move to Memphis, Tennessee?
Better job prospects, and they were really struggling in Tupelo, so there were better job prospects in Memphis.
They probably had to give up poke salad when they moved to Memphis.
I imagine they did have to give up the poke salad.
I did not know he had studied to be an electrician.
Yes.
Was that where he worked?
Crown Electric Company, that's correct.
Okay. So the Little Golden Book illustrations are pretty accurate.
Yes, they're doing really good. It is a really good book. And they do have a picture here of the son recording That's All Right. Now, That's All Right was intended to be professional, whereas his demos weren't.
The book implies that he didn't tell his parents that his song was going to be on the radio. Like it was just a complete surprise to both of them?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't get that out of it. As I recall, I think they knew it was going to be on, but I'd have to check a different reference.
Well, actually.
Yeah, I can just throw up a well, actually, to explain that. Or and furthermore...
Because the way it exclaims, Elvis's mother couldn't believe it when the DJ announced Elvis's name.
Maybe so. Another part of this story that obviously they just left out for space. So they didn't have a phone, so they called like the neighbor. They were trying to get Elvis to come over and do an interview with the disc jockey. He wanted to talk to him. And of course, he wasn't home. So the parents went and grabbed him out of the movie theater and took him to the DJ, which was Dewey Phillips. Elvis was nervous because he'd never been on the radio. So Dewey just said, look, it'll just be like this. I'll ask you these questions. And so they kind of talked back and forth. Well, Elvis didn't realize Dewey already had him on the air. So that way he wasn't nervous because...
That makes sense.
He kind of did it, He said, oh, well, you're done.
What movie did he go see?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I bet someone out there does, and it's probably been documented, but I don't know the answer.
I finally stumped you.
Oh, I don't think it's the first time.
No, I think it is.
Clever editing might make it seem otherwise, but I don't think it's the first time. Oh, another note about the Grand Ole Opry is he did appear on the Grand Ole Opry, which was a very traditional country music show. Well, Elvis was not a traditional country music singer. He was certainly inspired by country music and had some country influence, definitely. And you can hear it. The flip side of his record, of that first record, was Blue Moon of Kentucky. Very much a country song. So he goes on here, performs. There's just kind of polite reaction. And one of the Opry people told him, you better stick to driving a truck.
Oh. So he was discouraged again.
Right.
By someone. That's interesting.
And they show a family sitting around the TV, including a hound dog, singing along.
So on the first page, when it says one TV host refused to have Elvis on his show, were they referring to Ed Sullivan?
Yes. Yes. So there's a famous quote from Sullivan so 1956 is when all this blew up, is when Elvis blew up, really. And there's a famous quote early on from that year where Sullivan says, Elvis will never be on my show. Or it's not an exact quote, but something along those lines. And then by the end of that year, Elvis had been on his show twice, and he'd be on it one more time in 1957. Elvis rocketed to fame. Now, some of that was prior to Ed Sullivan. This almost makes it sound like Ed Sullivan made that happen. So a couple of things about that page. One, I was surprised they brought up the polio vaccine thing, because that's like when I think of the Elvis story, especially at a high level in a condensed form, that part of the story doesn't come to mind.
So I think what they are trying to refer to is this book was published in 2024.
That's right.
So at that time, a lot of people were still discussing COVID vaccines and receiving or not receiving, depending on their perspectives, COVID vaccine. So that's probably why they included that as a talking point for a children's book.
Right. The other thing is, I'm not aware that his vaccine was shown on live TV. And if it was, I've never seen any footage of it. Perhaps it was some kind of local thing. I do know that he got the vaccine, that he was an early adopter of it, and that it was well publicized. But I don't know for sure that it was shown on live TV. So I will throw up a slide either way explaining what I found out. But even so, it's still, for the most part, true. And obviously they're doing this stuff at a high level. Love Me Tender was the first of 31 movies that he acted in. So the numbers are right. So Lisa Rogers did her homework. And there's a nice illustration of Graceland. Of course, the gates are like right up against the house, but that's fine.
You've been to Graceland. Does that illustration look pretty accurate other than the gates are?
Yeah, this more or less looks like the house. And it more or less looks like the gates. They did a good job. They're just trying to illustrate everything in one. It's not uncommon for publicity or marketing photos to kind of show it this way too, because the musical notes gates are so iconic, but then so is the house. And it might be possible to get them both in the same shot, but it wouldn't look like this. You'd see like this little house in the background.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Elvis's den came to be known as the Jungle Room. So they're jumping into the 70s with that because it wasn't always decorated like that. But in the 1970s, he got some wild furniture. The funny story there is they're in this furniture store, Elvis and his dad and some others. And his dad was like, "Can you believe this jungle furniture? Like, who would ever buy that?" And so Elvis bought it.
Just because his dad said who would ever buy it.
Not mentioned here, but Elvis recorded 2 albums there, from Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, and Moody Blue, which was his last album.
Did he ever actually comment on these peanut butter and banana sandwiches? Because I've heard that discussed around casually through the years that was his favorite, but was that ever confirmed by him?
I definitely know that one of his longtime cooks would often talk about the peanut butter and banana sandwiches and how he liked them prepared and that kind of thing. We don't have, that I know of, a quote from Elvis talking about it, but at least like on audio. There's a video where she shows how she made it, and it's...
Was it chunky peanut butter or smooth peanut butter?
I don't remember. This isn't one of my...
I stumped you twice.
This isn't one of my Elvis obsessions.
I stumped you twice today.
Yes, you stumped me twice.
I'm on a roll.
Elvis joined the U.S. Army.
Joined? Isn't...
He was drafted.
Okay.
Yeah, they were kind of... That's probably because there is no draft today, and they didn't probably want to explain all that in this children's book. Well, I shouldn't say there is no draft. We haven't had an active draft for a long time in this country.
So when it says he could have spent his service performing, what does that mean? Like there was an option for him to literally just perform?
That's right. He could have, I think it was called special services or something like that. And he could have essentially been a singer and went around and entertained the troops.
Oh, okay. So he was here in this country when his mama passed away?
He was in Texas in basic training and rushed home to Memphis when she fell ill.
So when it says Elvis adored his little girl and even named one of his airplanes plural after her, so he had multiple airplanes?
There's 2 airplanes on display at Graceland. One is the large, usually passenger-style airplane, and that one's the Lisa Marie.
Okay.
There's a smaller airplane that he bought as a gift for Tom Parker, his manager. But Parker did not accept the gift because he didn't want to own an airplane because he thought it would be too expensive, which is actually probably true. Because having the airplane was very expensive. Because it's not like Elvis was a pilot, so they had to pay a pilot. There's the fuel cost. I mean, it was tremendous cost. But he used it, I guess, starting in the mid-'70s. So his last couple of years of touring, he was able to use it. I'm not aware that he had any other airplanes. He used other airplanes, like prior to having the Lisa Marie, he would fly on rented private planes. And then there is a famous excursion to Washington, D.C., where he flew on a public airplane, which we'll probably save that for a whole different show.
It also says Elvis and Lisa Marie had fun riding horses. So how many horses did he keep, do you know?
I don't know the exact number, but I want to say it was like around a dozen.
Oh, okay.
There was that whole time when he first got married, he actually bought a ranch. And so he bought horses. When Elvis did things, he went all out. So he bought horses not only for him and his wife, but for all of his friends and their wives. And so they ended up with a lot of horses. But eventually they ended up selling the ranch, but the horses came back to Graceland.
Oh, okay.
So he was a professional singer for over 20 years. He did not travel around the country that whole time. As you saw in Epic, there was a large period of time that he focused on movies in the 1960s. So they kind of glossed over that. They mentioned the fact that he made the 31 movies. They didn't really talk about how it distracted him through much of the 60s, and they didn't really get into his comeback, which I guess is fine. Again, it's a high-level book.
That illustration shows a very specific jumpsuit with a tiger on it. Is that a real jumpsuit?
That is a real jumpsuit.
Okay.
And it's not even a super famous jumpsuit. They really dug in to find this jumpsuit.
Well, I didn't see it in Epic. And the other thing I didn't see in Epic is on the drum, he actually has Elvis with a crown. So is that just illustrative?
Yeah, that's artistic license.
Okay.
I have never seen anything like with his name on it on the drum at all. And I don't recall anything that he was putting up that would have had the crown on it either. And the drummer looks like one of the Beatles back there, so I don't know what's going on. It's like Paul McCartney.
Shouldn't it be Ronnie Tutt?
Yeah, it should be Ronnie Tutt. It doesn't really look like Ronnie Tutt to me. Yeah, that is good. You did good.
Knowing the name there.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Ronnie Tutt.
No, it doesn't look like Ronnie Tutt.
Now they've got Jerry Schiff. Kind of looks right. I can kind of squint and see that's James Burton. John Wilkinson, I guess I don't really see that at all. And then we have the Sweet Inspirations over here.
So 600,000 people every year come to see Graceland. That's a lot of people.
The interesting thing, this last page has kind of a combination of jumpsuits here. We've got the sundial suit, which he was wearing for his last concert. And then there's flames on pieces of it. So there was a flame suit. So they've kind of combined that. And then he's got a cape, which is more from like his 1972, 1973 era, not the 1977 era of the sundial. So they kind of combined a lot of different things, which is fine.
So overall, it sounds like Little Golden Book Biography of Elvis Presley did a fairly accurate representation of Elvis Presley.
Yeah, I would agree. I think given the space constraints and the audience, I think they covered his life really well. I would definitely recommend the book for the right age reader. And that could be either end of the spectrum. It could be a young reader that has an interest, or it could be an older person who perhaps doesn't read as much as they used to. They could enjoy the pictures and things like that. I should note that we do no paid advertisements. We don't officially endorse anything. We're telling you we love this, which is fine. But just so you're aware, we're not going to have like an affiliate link or anything like that. We're just giving you our honest opinion on this or anything else we talk about. This is not a commercialized radio show. It's not we're not a monetized channel. That's what I'm trying to say.
We don't even run ads, but some platforms will run their own ads, but we do not run ads. I did purchase the book online, had it delivered, and it was very reasonably priced. But overall, I would really encourage you to look at Little Golden Books if you haven't recently. They have quite a line of updated biographies and current celebrities, and you'll probably find something there that either brings back some nostalgia for you depending on your age group or introduces you to something new. So you would give the Little Golden Book Biography of Elvis Presley a thumbs up?
Yes, we'll give it a thumbs up in honor of Siskel and Ebert. We'll give a thumbs up for that one. So 2 thumbs up, it sounds like,
yes,
right?
I would also give a thumbs up.
All right, well, thank you for the gift. It was really nice, and we got an episode out of it, so it was an extra gift. Until next time, if there is a next time, may God bless you.